Assassin's Creed 4 is conversely the sixth game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and does an excellent job of taking the well-tread themes of the Assassin's Creed games and moving them to a new and interesting setting. Assassin's Creed 4 improves excellently on its predecessor. Assassin's Creed 3 suffered slightly from the problems of its main character being slightly unlikable and its setting being slightly dull. Assassin's Creed 4 creates a more joyful and interesting environment and improves greatly upon the lessons that were learned with Assassin's Creed 3. Black Flag is technically a prequel to Assassin's Creed 3, set earlier in the 18th century in and around the British and Spanish colonial islands of Honduras, Cuba and the Bahamas. Most of the game is spent travelling between these islands on board your ship, the Jackdaw, and it does make for quite an interesting looking game. The Anvil engine does a really good job of rendering these beautiful Caribbean islands, even if some of the cliffs do feel like they've taken the setting from the old game and added a few palm trees. Nevertheless, it is still an incredibly beautiful game, from the towns to the sea and the islands. A nice little touch in the game is the addition of sea shanties, which your crew will sing if your ship is travelling at full speed.
So, what's a Templar Grand Master doing so far from his Castillo?
I'd rather not say.
And I'd rather not cut your lips off and feed him to you.
The setting allows Ubisoft to go in a slightly lighter direction with the story this time around, placing us in the shoes of grandfather of the previous protagonist, Edward Kenway. Edward becomes embroiled in the Assassin-Templar conflict almost by accident of fate, and throughout the game his main motivation remains mostly the endless acquisition of wealth. The main conflict this time is the pursuit of yet another artifact left behind by the ones who came before, this one called the Observatory. At times, Black Flag presents us with a lightness of tone that has been missing somewhat in previous entries in the franchise. This speaks to an intention by Ubisoft to immerse the player more in the setting of piracy rather than the overarching Assassin-Templar conflict.
And Ed Thatch, be hanged by the neck until death.
This gives the Observatory more of an appreciation for wealth rather than attaching any significance to it, as has been the case with artifacts in previous games. Ubisoft have taken an interesting turn with the direction of the modern-day storyline, with the player being introduced as a new employee at Abstergo Entertainment. This nicely links the use of Animus technology and where Abstergo is currently going.
Yar, matey. Very exciting. Welcome.
The parkour returns just as strong as it ever was in previous games, with a definite improvement to the fluidity of running, climbing and killing. Edward's arsenal has also been upgraded with an implementation of 2 new pistol slots. Stealth is also very well done, with a lot more options for hiding when engaged in combat. Some of the stealth missions do drag on for a little while, but because the stealth is so enjoyable, I didn't mind these too much. The parkour in the towns is also very well done, with flinging myself over the rooftops of Havana just as enjoyable as it was in Rome and Damascus. There were the same control issues I'd experienced in Assassin's Creed 3, where I'd be pointing one way and move the joystick only to have Edward fly off in a completely different direction. The map is a great sprawling world of various islands and seas, allowing for an enormous amount of exploration. Upgrades are still the main driving plot point for collecting money, with upgrades to Edward's weapons and war gear, as well as upgrades to his ship, the Jackdaw. Because the ship is such a bigger part of gameplay this time around, these upgrades have a lot more weight and significance. And the more money you put into your ship, the more money. Utilising the setting, there are a number of treasure maps you can find to collect greater rewards. Assassination contract missions also return after being strangely absent in the previous game, and these are always fun, utilising the stealth mechanics. Along with the addition of other activities such as harpooning, It seems there's plenty to do in the Caribbean to keep you occupied in between missions. Eagle Sense has been vastly improved by the introduction of a target tagging system similar to that seen in Far Cry 3. Another useful addition is the free aim function available now for your pistol, making assassinating targets easier than ever. The biggest addition is vast improvements to the shipping, exploration and combat mechanics, which are a key focus point of the game. One of the main improvements to the naval combat missions is the ability with which they seamlessly transition from land gameplay to sea gameplay. There has also been vast improvements to the actual combat in and of itself, with a more relevant array of weapons and abilities to use. There is also the new boarding mechanic, which allows you to take control of enemy ships and do battle on them. This lends itself very well towards the new piratical setting of the game, rather than to the overarching assassin storyline. As much fun as Black Flag is, it appears to have alienated itself a little bit from the Assassin's Creed franchise, moving more in ground towards new territory rather than some of the themes that we've seen before. Main gameplay outside the Animus revolves around hacking other computers within your Abstergo Entertainment offices. This provides the player with a fleshed out detail of what's been happening in the world since the end of Assassin's Creed 3. The hacking minigames leaves hours of potential gameplay out there for the discerning player. However, if you don't feel invested in the modern setting and want to focus entirely on Edward's story, that is entirely up to you. The multiplayer mode makes its welcome return, and it is still as interesting and unique as it has been in previous games. There has been a bunch of new map modes added to build on the previous library, and customization has also been improved, meaning that even if you've finished the game's main story, Black Flag still has plenty of hours of entertainment to offer you.
Where all of them duties they will come down.
It is for this reason that I gave Assassin's Creed 4 an 8.2 out of 10. Its level of exploration is truly amazing, and the developed side quests and level of detail are really impressive. Unfortunately, however, the story is still a little weak, and this keeps it from being the best of the franchise.
What the devil?